we've come to have a significant effect, good or bad, on everything we touch. I'm Thane Maynard. Tune into the 90-Second Naturalist and find out how we're interacting with the natural world today.
Listen every weekday afternoon during the KSJE Evening News at 5:30. Ten minutes past 8 o'clock. It is Tuesday morning, the 29th day of October, 2024. Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Micklin, and thanks for tuning in to KSJE 90.9 FM over the air here in San Juan County, New Mexico. In Durango, Colorado, we broadcast at 103.3 FM, and if you're listening anywhere else on the planet, you've gone to our website to tune in. That's streaming all the time, ksje.com. Also want to welcome our viewers who are joining us this morning. As you know, the video of this program is streaming out live to the KSJE Facebook page and also to our YouTube channel. So welcome aboard, each and every one of you. So glad that you are with us this morning. Coming up today, getting an update from Bloomfield Schools. Lots of exciting things going on in Bloomfield Schools these days. We'll get an update in the next few moments right here on KSJE. Then later on, we'll check in with Amber Francisco over at the Farmington Regional Animal Shelter. She's going to be talking about some of the pets available for adoption this week, including that pretty good-looking cat on the screen right there. That's Sabrina. We'll learn more about her coming up later at 8:50 a.m. on KSJE. Then, of course, Mick Hess will take us roving with the arts, our weekday classical music program. That begins next hour after the news at 9:06. Don't forget, you can also connect with us on X and Instagram in addition to Facebook and YouTube. And if you're a podcast person, we invite you to subscribe for free to KSJE Podcasts. You'll find them in places where you're probably already listening to podcasts. So check it out and discover a new local program that you may have missed recently. Outside our studios here at San Juan College, we have some off and on showers already this morning with a temperature of 56 degrees under cloudy skies. Not going to get much warmer than that today with a 50% chance of rain showers. The high of 58 in Farmington, 39 degrees overnight. Tomorrow, sunshine, but colder. 49 is as warm as we'll get on Wednesday. 30 degrees Wednesday night. Then by Thursday, warming up to 55 with a low of 32. 62 with sunshine on Friday. Maybe another chance of rain showers Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday of next week. I'll be back with my guests from Bloomfield Schools right after this. KSJE is supported by San Juan Regional Medical Center. The most important ingredients to sustaining health and wellness are the resources and tools that help you live a vibrant and healthy life. At San Juan Regional Medical Center, the goal is to promote health by making sure those resources are available. Find the path to the best life at lifebetterhere.com. San Juan Regional Medical Center. Better is our mission, improving lives through personalized health and care. I'm back in Studio A this morning with my guests, as I mentioned, from Bloomfield Schools. Welcome back to KSJE. Bloomfield Schools Superintendent Kevin Summers, who is here this morning. Good morning, Mr. Summers.
Good morning, sir.
Good to have you here, and some of the folks that you brought with you. James Olivas is back with us, of course, this morning, the Director of Operations. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Also, Stacy Babcock is here, the Bloomfield Schools Director of Finance. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thank you all for coming in this morning to talk about some of the things that are going on in Bloomfield Schools concerning money, for one thing, and some other things, Mr. Summers. So exciting times, I would say.
Really exciting times. Also, anxiety-producing times and frustration-producing times. But we're having a great time. Our students are doing great.
Good.
We've made it through the first quarter. We were actually just talking before we went on air that we can't believe it's already the end of October.
Right. No kidding.
So again, we didn't know if we were having fun or if we were just working hard, but time is passing very quickly, and it turns out we are having fun.
Well, that's good. That is very good. And I don't know about the anxiety part. I can't imagine. But you've got a good team around you, so
absolutely,
things are running pretty smoothly, I would think.
100%.
Very, very good. Well, let's talk about some of the things that are going on in Bloomfield Schools, and one of them is this golden ticket. And you talked about that a little bit last time you were here, I think.
Yeah, I wanted to give you an update. So all of the students who attend Bloomfield Schools, we've given them a golden ticket. Essentially, it's...
You're kind of like Willy Wonka in that regard,
kind
I guess,
of,
aren't
except
you?
without the candy.
Okay, all right. Halloween is coming. Maybe that'll
fair
resolve
enough.
itself. Yeah,
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Our golden ticket, because, blue and gold
Yes.
are our colors. Our golden ticket is literally just a QR code, but it allows all of our students to get into all of our home athletic contests for free. But the reason I wanted to bring that up is to say our kids are coming to our games. It's been a lot of fun.
Nice.
We've had over 2,400 students come to our home games so far this year. I think our football games average somewhere in the neighborhood of about 400 students in attendance.
Okay.
And even our volleyball games are somewhere between 30 and 80 kids, all the way up to 150 kids, I think, for one volleyball game. So we're seeing a big turnout. But the reason that that's important is we've got two of our soccer teams in state playoffs. We've got our football team that looks like they're cruising to another state title. And so as we start hosting those district and state playoff games, we just want to get the word out for our families that unfortunately those golden tickets do not work for state and district playoffs. That's outside of our control. And we've got to play fair with the NMAA.
Right.
So
Always want to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we want all of our kids to come, of course, but for state and district playoff games, they are going to have to pay for admission. And hopefully that doesn't deter too many from coming to our games.
Hopefully not. They can maybe use some of the money they've saved all season, maybe, of not having to buy a ticket to buy those playoff tickets, right?
I actually think the money that they saved, they probably spent on pickles and popcorn.
Well, that
we've
could be
been
too.
selling a lot of pickles
Well,
and popcorn.
all right. It all comes around. But I hear what you're saying. But I guess just the word to go out to folks that for the playoff games and in the district games, you got to buy a ticket.
That's correct.
The old-fashioned way.
The old-fashioned way, or maybe the new-fashioned way, because I think NMA actually requires digital ticket purchases.
Right.
But yes, there has to be an exchange of money somehow
To get into the
whether
district
it's in
and playoffs.
the ether or through hands.
Got it. Makes sense. But what a great thing. Is this something you're going to continue for spring sports, do you think? The golden
Yes.
ticket part of this?
Yeah, absolutely. We've committed to it this year. We said, you know what, let's see what happens. And like I said, we've got kiddos coming. There's a tremendous surge of school pride, and so we don't want to dampen that at all.
Right.
So yes, this will be all of our winter sports, all of our basketball, and then into the spring with track and all of those other things. Although track doesn't always necessarily have a great showing, and I think it's because a track meet takes all day. But
Well, that's true. Maybe it
but-
will. But you never know.
Yep, that's exactly right.
If you have a golden ticket, you may fill the stands at the
That's
track meet.
exactly
So
right.
we'll see what happens. But that's very exciting. And I can't imagine from the students' perspective on those athletic teams, it's great to look up at the stands and see a bunch of your fellow students rooting for you too. Might be nice to see.
I imagine you're right. I
Yeah.
think they have to be full of pride when they see, their classmates and their schoolmates coming out to cheer them on.
Yeah, very true, very true. Well, congratulations. Brick sales going on pretty strong.
Yep, going well. In fact, this is our second sale of the year. This is our homecoming brick sale because homecoming was in the month of October.
Right.
There's only, 3 days left now to buy a brick. We did receive our inaugural order in, I think last week. They look phenomenal. We're sending pictures to all the people who purchased them, and everybody said, "Oh, I can't wait to see them installed." So they'll be installed very soon. But this is the last chance of the year to buy a brick. So if anyone's interested in etching their name literally in stone,
Right.
then jump on our website. You can find the link on our Facebook page as well. But you only have until Halloween to purchase your brick.
Couple more days.
Yeah, just
as
a
we
few
have
more
said.
days.
That's very true. And remind us again where on the Bloomfield High School campus, I believe, is where these are going to be installed. Remind us again where
That's
that site
correct.
is going to
So
be.
directly in front of the high school campus, we have a Bobcat statue. That's what we're going to call the Bobcat Pride Plaza.
Nice.
First installation will be shortly. Hopefully we get it in before the weather gets too nasty, but looking at the forecast, we might need to wait a little while.
Yeah, well, it'll change. Don't worry.
That's right.
It
Just wait.
always changes, so we know about that, but that's okay. But I would imagine maybe the sooner that you order your brick, the maybe better placement your brick may have as
Absolutely.
this plaza starts to grow and fill in that space there.
Well, and I don't know that there's a bad placement necessarily,
Good point.
but of course, yeah.
Prominent, more close to the Bobcat statue than not, I guess.
Well,
I don't know.
actually, no. So we're starting kind of at the beginning. It's going to start with a walkway to the Bobcat statue.
okay. All
I
right.
don't know how long it's going to take us to actually get to the Bobcat statue.
Okay.
But, the sooner you order your brick, the quicker it gets installed. So you'll actually kind of see this progression from the beginning of the walkway to the Bobcat statue, and then there's a walkway beyond the Bobcat statue. So
Gotcha.
you'll be able to see how your brick order came in, I guess, based
Right.
on where your brick is.
Got it. Okay. But this is the last one for this year, and then you'll be doing this again in 2025. Folks will have an opportunity.
Correct.
If they miss out this time.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Or if somebody hears about it and wants to do it, they can have a chance next year too to do it.
Correct.
So, okay.
Spot on.
I understand.
You got it.
I think I got it. So, very good. The bond project update, this was another exciting thing that you mentioned, I think, last time we were together talking about some bond sales and building a new school in Bloomfield.
Couple new schools. So luckily in August, the voters authorized up to $28 million in bonds for us to replace 3 of our aging campuses, right? Central Primary, Naba Ani, and Mesa Alta. And if you'll remember, Central Primary, I think, was originally built in 1958. Naba
Before
Ani,
my time.
Before my
Before
time.
all of our time,
definitely.
I'm afraid, yes.
Naba Ani, during our time, 1982,
Okay.
and then Mesa Alta Junior High in 1960. And so all 3 of those campuses, because of their age and condition of buildings, they're in the PSFA's top 100 ranking, which is, it sounds great, but it's really not great. It actually means your campuses are either old or in bad condition or both. And so schools that are in the top 100 actually have the opportunity to get some matching funds from the PSCOC, which stands for the Public Schools Capital Outlay Council.
Okay.
And so things are shaping up really quickly, and we actually have to go and present to the PSCOC next month for a potential award in December with sales, or at least a partial sale of the bond, probably in December or January. And so the intent for us currently is to rebuild all 3 of those schools, but to do it in a way that's efficient and effective. And so ultimately what we want to do is rebuild the current Mesa Alta Junior High kind of where it stands, but include with it 6th grade, because right now Mesa Alta is a true junior high. It's just 7th and 8th grade. We want to include the 6th grade and turn it into a middle school. And then adjacent to that, we want to build one nice, probably vertical building, a couple of stories tall, that will house grades 1 through 5. And so essentially it consolidates Central Primary and Naba into one campus. And so both of those schools would be built in the same area. So for all intents and purposes, once our students enter the 1st grade, they're going to be in the same location until they enter high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. And so would that mean that the current site of Central Primary would be then not used anymore by the district? Is that kind of the idea?
Well, it certainly wouldn't be used for student use
I got it.
necessarily. We've actually had several conversations about what do we do with these 2 other buildings should the PSCOC actually approve this project. And we've talked about a couple different options. So one, we could, do a little bit of demo work, do a little bit of refurbishing, and we can turn it into a training building. We can turn it into a new central office. We could turn it into a new bus barn. I think the options are essentially endless, but correct. Both the current Central Primary and the current Naba Ani buildings will no longer be used for students.
Got it.
Once this project actually is completed.
Right, but there's a few more steps, though, I guess.
There
before
are a
we
few
can
more steps.
Talk in absolutes about what this is going to look like and things like that, but that is exciting. And so, so talk to me a little bit about this graphic that we're seeing now.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to turn it over to Mr. Olivas. But
Okay.
This is the concept of what we're trying to do, and it's the concept that we're starting out with the PSCOC of why try to rebuild all 3 of these in one fell swoop.
I see. Okay.
And so I'm going to turn it over to James so he can kind of shed light on the vision.
Okay, gotcha. For our radio audience who can't see what we're looking at, you're kind of comparing the benefits, I guess, of new construction as opposed to maybe renovating old construction. Is that kind of the idea, Mr.
Yes,
Olivas?
that is kind of correct. We want to tell our story on why we need to build these new buildings. Part of the story is even just the history of where we're at today. When it was the year of COVID, as you will, we were already in talks to replace Naba Ani with PSCOC, PSFA.
Mm-hmm.
We had gotten to the point where we were just going to present just like we are next month, and then hopefully get an award to replace Naba Ani. But then COVID hit, and then all fundings were stopped at that point, and so no projects went out that year. Fast forward 2 years later, PSFA still has us on the radar. Then at that time, the plan was to do Central, and so we were seeking their assistance in building Central But then some legislative things got in the way, such as the offsets that were generated based on funding that came from legislators. And then there was the match. We were in the high 90s when it came to match, meaning we were going to pay 90% or greater of that bill, and then PSCOC would fund the rest. So those things kind of killed that second, wave of us trying to build a school.
Sure.
And then you fast forward a few more years later, and then here we are. So here we are trying to tell the story on why our buildings need to be replaced. We can make the comparisons between a brand new school, a brand new home, and an old home. When you get your first home, you're the first owner. You're happy, you're proud because you just bought this amazing thing and all the bells and whistles that you want. You are the first owner. Where if later on you're not the first owner anymore, especially if you've moved on. And there's multiple owners, and you have to think about the wear and tear of multiple owners. Because if you think about our school population, let's just look at one building. You have 700 people using one building every day, so that takes a tax on a lot of your systems. So now you don't have the original systems that you have. You have used systems. Parts become extinct, especially as your buildings age, and so you have to spend a lot more money to fix things that are a lot older. So that brand new state-of-the-art building that you would have when you initially started was designed for the times. And so now as you're looking at 50 years later or even 70 years later in some of our buildings, we need to update that infrastructure, update the power demands, the technology demands, and then develop greater spaces for learning so that students can do what they need to do when it comes to learning.
Sure, that makes sense to me. And certainly over the years, you maybe had an addition onto a building, or maybe you tried to get your HVAC to do more with the expanded footprint of the building, or whatever the case may be. There's been little additions and things over the years, and so you still have to deal with all that stuff as well.
Exactly. One thing that we continuously get is that our buildings look amazing. Our crew has done an amazing job in upkeeping these buildings, and so the cosmetics of it looks really well. However, like you mentioned, the aging infrastructure, the systems that are attached to them, they don't get any younger, and so we have to go in and make sure that we can be in a better place. I mean, like Mr. Summers had mentioned, being more efficient in our systems, compacting our district so that we can minimize our footprint, having the systems that are efficient where we're not spending as much money either using them or maintaining them, and then just, again, creating better learning spaces for both staff and students. So that's kind of like what we're headed and how we're presenting it to the PSCOC in hopes that they too can understand our story and help us out.
Right. And I would think too that to try to retrofit an older building has some additional costs involved as well. I mean, certainly if the building looks great, it's been somewhat well maintained, but still, and I keep going back to HVAC, but those seem to be the systems that get out of date quickly. Try to retrofit something like that and ductwork and things like that's pretty pricey when you're talking about a building the size of a school.
Right. I mean, when you drill down to brass tacks, and you just think of a door. A simple door should be, a few thousand. Well, it was when it was built, but you fast forward to today's times, supply chain issues, resource issues, trading amongst the global economies. Those prices go up, and then so we had replaced a door, front door, several years back, and that door back then was like $10,000. That same door today can run you in the neighborhood of $15,000 to $17,000. Just replacing locks on doors. I mean, you would think a simple lock on a door would be great, but and cheap, but by the time you multiply that, like you said, for an entire school, you're talking about millions of dollars just to replace locks on doors. And that is essential in today's times when we're talking about safety and keeping people safe. A lot of the safety initiatives also are very expensive in today's time. So.
Well, I was just going to bring that up, and I think that's an important thing to think about, especially for parents and residents of the Bloomfield School District, is that a lot of these schools were built at a time when you didn't have to worry about safety, and boy, wasn't that a nice memory to have. But in these current times, that's an important thing to have when you're talking about a school building and maybe controlling access as to who can just walk in off the street. Nobody can do that anymore at any school, I don't think, in the area, which is a good thing, and is part of the thing of keeping your students and staff safe. And these buildings, when they're new, can be designed with that in mind, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Oh yeah, right. You're hitting it right on the nail. I mean, when you do safety initiatives in old schools, existing schools, a lot of time it doesn't look as welcoming as it could be. But with better design and trying to make those things better with newer schools, we can make that more of a welcoming environment for parents or visitors, but equally making it safe for staff and students. So this is a great transition that we could make by building newer schools and putting that into our designs.
Right. And by having the two of these new proposed schools kind of next to each other or in closer proximity, does that also help from a safety standpoint too? I assume maybe it does, and from having different properties scattered throughout the city.
Sure. Safety. So there's a lot of positives in this.
I see.
By putting those campuses together, we can, like I said, minimize our district footprint, but we could be more efficient in how we serve kids by compartmentalizing a lot of those bigger systems, such as counseling and cafeteria, and putting those things together so that we're not having to do it 3 times. We're doing it in 2 different buildings, but we're making it more efficient. The way we do our bus loops, the way we do our custodial, the way we do our just even with the newer systems, we're not spending so much efficiency-wise because we have the newer systems that are running. So we're in essence, hopefully, we're spending less by spending a little bit now, but saving a lot later.
Right. Another graphic that you shared with me this morning too is this one, which is about the numbers of systems in your buildings, is what we're showing, right? That maybe are within the end of their lifespan, within give or take 5 years or so. And so this is showing, I guess, some of the issues that these things, if a new school isn't built, I guess what you're saying is these things are going to need to be replaced.
Yeah,
Because they're probably going to fail.
Yeah, Mr. Summers did a great job here in giving a graphic that demonstrates how our systems, they don't get any younger, and every day that goes by, they just have more usage. They have their lifestyle. Actually, their lifespans are beyond in some instances.
Right.
And then so we're trying to be very good stewards of our money, but also showing the impact that if we don't do something soon, it's just going to get worse and it's going to cost more money. And then so by having this plan and replacing new buildings, we can actually do better things and have better outcomes.
Right. Now, when we talk about systems, I always
Sure.
go to HVAC, but there's others too. And so what are the ones I'm not thinking of?
So I think that's something for kind of John Q. Public to realize with regard to the Public Schools Facilities Authority is everything is a system. So flooring is a system.
See.
Wall and wall finishes are a system. Roofing, foundation, plumbing, electrical, HVAC, windows, doors, those things are all systems.
Got
So
it.
when we look at this particular graphic, it's essentially illustrating how many systems exist within those buildings. As you said earlier, sometimes you do additions, and so you've got 2 different floor systems that have 2 different lifespans, and they're in 2 different stages of those lifespans, and so it kind of makes it a little bit messy. But at Central Primary, for instance, 36 of those systems currently are within 5 years of end of life, but 68 of them are already at or beyond, beyond.
Right.
Not even at. So if we wait 5 years, for instance, and I used 5 years because that's about the typical project span. If we wait 5 years, that number 68 of our systems that are beyond end of life, that's going to increase by 36. And then there'll be a new number to replace that 36. And so it's this snowball effect of, okay, we can either replace these things one at a time, we can replace these buildings one at a time, or we can do it all in one fell swoop and really do something that's intentional, like James was saying, that's efficient, and that's best for the community in all regards because of the longitudinal effect, we'll have lower operating costs, we have lower maintenance costs. And of course, when something's brand new, obviously it takes a lot less to maintain it. We still need to maintain it.
Sure.
But it's much less than something that's 66 years old.
Right. And I would think that in the years since some of these things were built, these schools were built, or these systems were installed, that the efficiencies have maybe gotten better, one would hope, for HVAC or even electric, and maybe you can use more energy-saving light fixtures and things like that in these buildings. And so again, those overall operating costs hopefully go down over time, or at least are
Exactly.
controlled over time, right?
Exactly.
And don't keep going up and up and up. is the idea. And I suppose when you show this to the folks at the, and I'm going to mess up the acronym, but this group that you're talking to get the money from the state, right? These matching
Correct,
funds.
yes.
They are in charge of determining how much matching funds they'll be able to give you towards a project of this scope?
Correct, right. So by legislature, there's kind of matching rates that are already set, but Bloomfield Schools is actually eligible for a reduction in that. So currently, the way the match is set, we are on the hook for 63% of the bill, and the state for 37%. But because we're eligible for, it's called a local match reduction, because we're eligible for that waiver, in theory, the PSCOC and the PSFA can give us much more than just the 37% that is set in statute currently. So that's actually what we're trying to do. We're trying to appeal to them. This is a good project. It's good for everybody involved. Help us out here a little bit.
Right,
Yeah.
got you. And of course, it'll be up to them to determine just how much they're able to do. But that
Correct.
brings us, I guess, to dollars and cents, and that's why Stacy Babcock is here, I think, this morning.
That's
to talk
exactly
a little
right.
bit about those dollars and cents when you're talking about, and when we talk about numbers with commas in them, I get really nervous. But you folks deal with them all the time. But this is kind of what we're looking at, some financial analysis of this project, right?
Yes, this is more of a financial analysis of our previous bonds. We're under the 5 million mark for having those paid off. So with Bloomfield's long running of good stewardships of our funds, we're in the position, as you can see on the slide, under about 6.27% of our bonding capacity currently. So that's allowing us to
Talk about these
To
scopes
sell-
of
to sell
projects,
our
I
new
guess, right?
bonds, yes.
Yes, understood. And so, and is part of this maybe a project that the public would recognize as one of these with the high school? Is that what we're looking at?
That is correct.
Yeah.
One of the older ones?
Yep. The
2010?
2010 bond. Mhm.
Got you. And so I think maybe residents, again, of the Bloomfield schools can maybe see the benefits of the new high school and what it has brought to student learning and things along that line, and hopefully saving some costs from the old high school and things like that. And so what you're proposing is almost doing the same thing again with these other schools.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
If you think about it. And so again, but again, it's always important for folks to understand the bonding capacity. And so with these new bonds, where would the district still be? Would you still be under that 10% or so, or where would you be?
It will stay under the 10%. With the new bonds, we'll have some of our outstanding amount already
You're paying
paid.
them off, right?
Uh-huh.
Got you. And that would be the 2017 bond is what it looks like for final maturity in 2026?
Yes.
Is that what I'm looking at correctly?
Right. And we're actually in a financial position right now where we can actually completely pay these off. And so in the next few months, you'll see that debt actually completely drop off. Our percent bonded to capacity would go to zero essentially,
right.
And then we'll sell the first segment of those new $28 million in bonds. So then you'll see that percent bonded to capacity creep up a little bit, but it's still going to be relatively low for a district our size and hopefully for a project this size.
Right.
Okay.
And that's important, I think, just for folks to understand the reasoning, because if I own property or own a home in Bloomfield, are my tax rates going to stay about the same, or what does that mean for me as a property owner, homeowner in Bloomfield schools?
Yeah, so tax rates are not increasing. We got that out with the vote for
Right.
this new bond. They won't be increasing and should not in the future.
Got you. And then that's a good point. Voters have already said, we're okay with this.
Yes.
And here's the max amount that you can bond, I guess, right, is what they're saying.
Correct.
Am I on the
Yep.
right track with
Yep.
that?
Nope,
Okay.
you're spot on.
Again,
Spot on.
it's dollars and money with commas, and it really makes me nervous. But if you folks would talk about it and not break a sweat, I'm okay with that. So there you are. But this is exciting.
Yeah, very exciting.
To talk about these things. When do you think you'll have an answer from the state group about what they're able to do or help Bloomfield do with their schools?
Right. So we're presenting to them November 12th, and
Okay.
I believe by December 16th we should have an answer. So that doesn't necessarily mean we're breaking ground on December
Sure.
17th, because the first phase of this is planning, right? Lots of architects in there. We call them, I can't even think of it now. the right sizing of the
Oh,
spaces. What's that called?
The adequacy standards that
Oh,
we have
thank
to
you.
meet with each building, because
Okay.
based on the population of your school determines the square footage that you're allowed. That square footage also, each student generates a certain square footage, and then it develops the footprint for your building. Like, how big does your gym have to be? How big do your classrooms have to be? So there's a lot of that conversation that has to occur in planning to make sure that we're within the scope that they have when it comes to building these new schools.
Got you. Understood. And so these new buildings may not be as large or as small as the old buildings were because of the changes in demographics of the Bloomfield district over the last 30 years, I guess,
Well,
right?
historically, the last 10 years and the
Last
next
10.
5 years that
Okay.
we project, right?
Got it.
So yes, exactly. We have to right-size them to the projected enrollment and current enrollment.
Right.
And we have seen a pretty significant decline in enrollment over the last 10 years, due to a number of different factors, whether it be COVID, economic development within the area, or the kind of exporting of jobs from the area.
Sure.
Which we've seen quite a bit of, and we see it historically. It's cyclical, right?
Right.
So yeah, we there's a lot of conversations we have to do. So I say this is probably a little bit of a liberal estimate, but conservatively, I know what I just did, right? But conservatively, we're probably not breaking ground until 26.
2026.
That's probably
Sure.
a pretty good timeline. If we're super liberal about it, maybe a year from today, but probably not till 2026.
Gotcha. Well, with a project like this, there's a lot of planning that's involved and things along that line. Now, what if the state comes back and says, we'll approve you for 2 buildings but not 3?
Right.
Can you scale this back, or could you
Yes,
do that
yeah.
if they come back with something like that?
That's the beauty of this. We're not very far down this road. And so if they say, yeah, we're not going to approve this project, but here's what we will do. Let's approve this one first. Great, no big deal. We can move forward with that one. We'll actually have further conversations with them moving forward, because we still do need to get all 3 of those buildings replaced. We'd rather do it in one fell swoop than one
Right.
at a time. But if we have to do it one at a time, that's something that we can do that also doesn't impact the taxpayer.
Got you. Understood. And I guess the idea being, too, that if you can get all these 3 approved at the same time, does that mean construction would be happening at almost the same time? Is that your hope with costs and things, or what?
So probably not. It would probably be constructed in phases,
I
where
see.
Mesa Alta would be constructed first, so that nobody's ever really displaced.
I
Right?
see. Gotcha.
So construct the new Mesa Alta, then you can put kids in it, then you can demo the old Mesa Alta, then you can start building the new elementary, and you don't have to move kids out of the current buildings. So,
Right. Gotcha.
So it'd probably be done in phases.
Okay, understood. But again, I guess, too, what the state is looking at is, if you build it now, it's this certain cost. If you wait 5 more years or 10 more years, the costs are going to be higher, as we've seen.
In
And we're
theory.
trying to play with that, if they understand that, because there's a lot of benefits for them. I mean, they don't have to help us with 3 buildings; they can help us with 2 buildings. By doing the size right concept and the efficiency improvements and such not with newer buildings, it lends really well to what their philosophies are in building new buildings for school districts. So we're hoping that our story and the longevity of it that we've had with them will help support that. They will help fund all the buildings that we need to get in one fell swoop, because cost efficient wise, it'll be less to build the 2 projects. I understand, time would go and then, prices go up, but if they could do them close to one another, you don't have to move crews back and forth and whatnot. So
True.
by having everything on site at one time saves a lot in costs.
Got it. That makes sense. Well, you make a good argument, and we'll see what they say, I guess, right? And after maybe mid-November, and maybe tell us about it before the end of the year.
Yeah,
See
sounds
how-
great. And in
see how
fact,
these go.
since we convinced you, I think you should come with us.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I'm a good. We'll see. But it still makes me nervous when you talk about those big numbers. So
Us too.
You guys
Us too,
are.
to be
I'm
fair.
sure. I'm
Now
sure
we
you do.
we do deal with them more
Right.
often for sure, but
Right.
but it's still, we have an obligation to be good fiscal stewards. We're entrusted with these funds from the taxpayer. We're entrusted with children from the taxpayer. And so we want to be as transparent as possible. And we really appreciate you letting us come on and talk about what that plan is.
Well, it's nice to hear a little bit of the reasoning behind these decisions that are being made, and for folks in the Bloomfield district and others who want to know how their money's being spent, or how these public dollars are being spent, and what your plans are for them. That's helpful to understand, where this is coming from. So appreciate
Absolutely.
the explanation this morning, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all very very much. My guest this morning, and we're out of time, I'm sorry to say, but thank you all for coming in. My guest from Bloomfield Schools with me this morning here on KSJE. KSJE and the San Juan College Native American Center present the Student Study Tip of the Week.
Hello, this is Demetrius coming with you, the study tip of the week. While it may seem like a good idea to learn an entire semester's worth of information in one night, it's not an effective study habit, and it can cause a lot of unnecessary stress. Instead, study a little bit of information every day for at least 20 to 30 minutes. You'll likely remember more later, and you'll feel calm and prepared when it comes to exam time.
The Student Study Tip of the Week is presented by the San Juan College Native American Center and KSJE.
Deepfakes have landed in schools. From American Public Media, this is Marketplace Tech. I'm Megan McCarty-Carino.